Good evening, I'm Peter Mansbridge, and this is The National. Britain on its highest alert for an imminent terror attack.
I ask everybody to be vigilant.
After a deadly bombing in Manchester targets young concert goers.
Even if you think you've seen her, just let the police know, please.
The victims, the suspect, and the new normal for your safety. Protesters smear refugees at an Alberta high school.
We shouldn't be accommodating people coming in our country.
Plus, he found the humor in James Bond. We remember Roger Moore.
Stay in there, good night. We've got you spotted.
For the first time in a decade, the UK is at its highest threat level, critical. The British Prime Minister says another attack like the one in Manchester may be imminent, and the military could be brought out to guard public spaces. A tense situation, and part of the main question for investigators: was last night's attacker acting alone? The house lights had just come up on a pop concert inside the massive Manchester Arena. Crowds of young people began pouring out. That's when the suicide bombers struck. An explosion in the foyer led to chaos. 22 people are dead, dozens more injured. The city is shaken, and even with messages today of healing and an unbroken spirit, the details are so scarce, the pain so fresh, most don't know who they're mourning yet. Margaret Evans begins our coverage from Manchester.
There was a tough beauty to the vigil in Manchester this evening, a city standing up even while bowing its head in sorrow.
Defiant, just here to say this is our city, and we're telling you that we don't like what you've done.
Any sense of peace or security in Manchester was ripped from its grasp last night when an apparent suicide bomber struck the Ariana Grande concert. Many of those in attendance, the most vulnerable of targets. Today, the police chief constable for Greater Manchester gave details of the investigation so far.
I can confirm that the man suspected of carrying out last night's atrocity is 22-year-old Salman Abedi.
Abedi was born in Britain to parents who apparently escaped Libya and the regime of Muammar Gaddafi as refugees. Police did arrest a 23-year-old man in connection with the attack earlier in the day. The British Prime Minister, Theresa May, in the midst of a now suspended election campaign, met her special Cobra Security Committee, afterwards raising the terror alert in Britain to the highest possible level.
That it is a possibility we cannot ignore that there is a wider group of individuals linked to this attack.
Manchester is already extremely tense. The Arndale Mall was rebuilt after being destroyed by an IRA bomb more than 20 years ago.
What's happening? Just out the building.
Today, it was the scene of an apparent false alarm. People spooked by a loud noise, sending them and security guards into panic mode.
We're not entirely sure what just happened. We were inside the shopping mall. We started here shouting. We looked off the corridor we were in. We saw people running down through the mall, and then we saw security guards starting to follow them, telling people to clear the building. One thing is clear, people were very, very frightened.
Jack Buckman shakes visibly when he talks about last night, the concert he took his boyfriend to as a present.
I feel selfish that we got out and people didn't, and I just can't stop looking at these pictures of the missing people and just hoping there's a bit of hope out there that they do get out.
For now, they've begun to name the dead. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Manchester.
The youngest victim identified so far, just 8 years old. The little girl, like thousands at that concert. Tonight, the agonizing wait drags on for dozens of parents who don't know yet what happened to their child. Nala Ayed is also in Manchester with that part of the story.
In every anguished plea, in every urgent appeal, lives just a little hope that these young, smiling faces are somewhere, just waiting to be found. Olivia Campbell, only 15, didn't make it home last night.
This is my daughter, Olivia.
And there is nothing that could ease even the thought of a child slipping through a mother's fingers.
I'm going through hell, like I can't even explain what I'm going through. Even if you think it's her, just let someone know that it might be her, please. I just want her home. I want her back in my arms.
Only at the deepest end of callousness could a homemade bomb find purpose in a sea of pink balloons. It meant an 8-year-old, Safi Rose Roussos, who was seeing her first ever concert, has now seen her last. And despair now for the families of 2 others confirmed dead. 18-year-old college student Georgina Callender, a dedicated fan of Ariana Grande, who once met her, and John Atkinson, a 28-year-old, described by friends as a beautiful soul.
Absolutely distraught for the people that are caught up in it.
And so in the struggle to make sense of such loss, countless pitched in to help the survivors.
People screaming, people...
AJ Singh spent the night ferrying concert goers to safety. Today, he still carried their pain.
If that was your sister, your mum, whoever it could be, you would want someone to take them home or take them to the emergency services or whatever. They've been through hell.
You haven't seen this girl by any chance, have you?
Excuse me.
I'm just asking if you've seen this young girl.
And some, like Olivia Campbell's family, are still going through hell.
Anybody knows where she is? All we know is a phone call and we can go and get her.
In another part of Manchester, in a whole other arena, families gather to wait for news, supported by Red Cross counsellors.
It's a nerve for us all, I have sort of 5 grandchildren and, you're aware of, sort of friends and family who were there and, it's a difficult time.
The hardest is the not knowing. The most devastating is how this could happen at all. And the most nagging question is why.
We know that at least 22 people have lost their lives so far. In the coming days, they too will be given names. And many of them will be the names of young girls. Nala Ayed, CBC News, Manchester.
Investigators made a relatively quick arrest overnight and named the bomber just hours after the attack. There appears to be a connection between the 2 men, and perhaps a wider one in the Manchester neighborhood where they lived. Our Adrian Arsenault has been piecing together what they know and where their investigation is likely going.
It's been interesting watching the flow of information today. The details that this was a suicide bombing, the name of the bomber, all that information came from U.S. authorities, not British authorities. The Brits tend to like to guard that sort of information a little more closely until they've done more investigating. So the leaking of those details will be a huge frustration for them. What many intelligence officials will tell you openly, though, is that they have been worried about Manchester for a while.
It is well known and has been for decades that Manchester has been a source of support, human resourcing for various Salafi jihadist groups, Al-Qaeda being one of them.
The story of the bomber, Salman Abedi, is becoming a little bit clearer. He has a bit of a history of gang violence. That's a pretty common denominator with recent attackers, by the way. And he's from a neighborhood in Manchester known as Moss Side. It also has a history of gang violence that it has been trying to shake. It's the connections in that neighborhood that will prove key. So have a look at this. This is a home that was raided in Moss Side today. It's where Abedi was living. Just 100 meters away is a school that the Halani twins used to attend. Those are the young women who went off to join ISIS. About 1.5 kilometers away from that, a man was arrested today. Some reports suggest it might have been Abedi's brother. So this whole neighborhood was also home to a man named Stephen Gray. He's in jail for funding terrorism. Ronald Fiddler also lived there. He died as a suicide bomber in Iraq in February. The Guardian newspaper has gone through a number of records and found at least 9 other people from Moss Side associated with terror groups. At least one of the people of concern from that neighborhood is a known recruiter, and it's a man Abedi happened to know as well. Police will be desperate to untangle those connections. The cell phone records are really going to say a lot, and so will the types of explosives used, because different groups tend to favor different types of explosives, and whatever is in the bomb will often tell you who made the bomb. UK authorities are looking at the possibility he had some help with that bomb, because it's extremely difficult to make a bomb yourself and have it be stable enough that it doesn't detonate prematurely. So the prospect that there is help out there really rattles them. In the last 18 months or so, the UK authorities have foiled more than a dozen plots. What has happened in that country has been along the lines of knife or car attacks, but nothing on the scale of the complexity of Manchester. So they look at what happened last night and realize there might be a network at play, and that absolutely unnerves them. Adrienne Arsenault, CBC News, Toronto.
Even with the city grieving, music did play on in another part of Manchester tonight. Scottish rockers Simple Minds carried on with their show.
When you're in your game, you travel the world and things happen that are beyond belief. But when we went through the band today, when we spoke to the crew, everybody wanted to play. There was no doubt about that.
The band played Bridgewater Hall, a smaller venue south of the Manchester Arena. Some security analysts say terrorism is a problem we can only manage, not fully eradicate. To that end, several sports and culture venues have been quick to announce an increase in security for upcoming events. But does that really do anything anymore to deter an attack? Ron Charles looks at the challenge of hardening those soft targets.
The Ottawa Senators announced enhanced security at tonight's game against the Pittsburgh Penguins.
We ask that you now stand and remove your hats for a moment of silence in honor.
The team won't say what new security measures they're taking at Ottawa's Canadian Tire Centre. Metal detectors and bag searches are already the norm going into large concert venues or sporting events. But what about just outside in the public areas leading to and from the events that are often jammed with people? Experts call those areas the new soft targets for terrorists.
The most vulnerable times are when people enter this sort of venue or when they exit, because that's when you have the greatest concentration of crowds, and you have that concentration in an area that's difficult to secure.
Some experts suggest expanding security perimeters around events, searching attendees before they get close.
Certainly the perimeter that has been applied to many of the large stadiums over the last couple of years, that's at least 100 yards, 50 yards to 100 yards away from the building, has worked.
But soft targets have included airport terminals in Turkey and Belgium, streets crowded for public events in France and Germany, a nightclub in the US.
How large are you going to make the perimeter security? Are you going to have perimeter security around the entire train station in this particular case?
Canada has not seen that kind of carnage, but police forces across the country are thinking hard about security at this summer's events for Canada's sesquicentennial.
They will all be paying particular attention to large gatherings of people, and in our 150 year, there will be a great many of those gatherings. So all of our agencies and authorities will be doing their job very, very carefully.
Still, Canada's threat level remains where it's been since a lone gunman attacked Parliament Hill in October 2014 at medium. Ron Charles, CBC News, Toronto.
Coming up, what you should take away from the Manchester bombing. Now that sudden danger seems the new normal. We'll hear from security experts about the mistakes we make in the wake of each attack. Donald Trump was among the world leaders to condemn the attack in Manchester. Senior correspondent Susan Ormiston has that and the latest on his Middle East trip from Jerusalem.
President Trump's tolerance tour was eclipsed today by the terror in Manchester. In Bethlehem to meet with the Palestinian Authority leader, he spoke bluntly.
So many young, beautiful, innocent people living and enjoying their lives murdered by evil losers in life. I won't call them monsters, because they would like that term. They're losers.
President Mahmoud Abbas said this visit had injected some hope here. But Palestinians in the West Bank are skeptical, while some see the new U.S. president as an opportunity.
It's the last chance for a peace agreement or a peace compromise.
Many others are wary of this latest emissary of peace.
After he come, trust me, there will be big war here.
Trump's two-day tour ended at the Israel Museum, the curious craning for just a glimpse. Timing is everything, said Joseph Nemirovsky.
Maybe both sides are tired from this situation, and maybe it's the right time for a change.
In a signature speech, soothing, supportive words for Israel and reassurances to its prime minister that the U.S. has its back and will condemn its enemies, Trump style.
And Iran's leaders routinely call for Israel's destruction. Not with Donald J. Trump. Believe me.
After 4 days in the Middle East, Trump left Israel without concrete plans for peace talks. Advisors say he never promised that. And tragically, it was Manchester which underscored one of his key messages. Peace, he says, can't root in any place where violence is tolerated. This tour was largely about bridge building, and with little of the diplomatic carnage that some had predicted, Trump's team has to be happy about that. But as one man said to us today, everyone behaved very decently during the last few days. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Back in Washington, the former CIA director told a congressional committee he was concerned about contacts between Donald Trump's campaign and Russia. John Brennan's testimony is shedding more light into the investigation of alleged meddling into last fall's election. Ellen Morrow has the details.
This was the first time former CIA Director John Brennan publicly expressed his worries about the Trump campaign's contacts with Russian officials.
I encountered and am aware of information and intelligence that revealed contacts and interactions between Russian officials and U.S. persons involved in the Trump campaign.
Brennan acknowledged the contacts may have been benign, but still they raised suspicions.
By the time I left office on January 20th, I had unresolved questions in my mind as to whether or not the Russians had been successful in getting U.S. persons involved in the campaign or not to work on their behalf.
Brennan's testimony follows 2 weeks of escalating drama. Punctuated by allegations Trump himself tried to influence, even obstruct, the FBI's Russia investigation.
The walls feel like they are closing in on the Trump administration right now, and I'm not sure that they can hold them off for much longer.
The latest allegation came last night, a report that Trump asked top intelligence officials to publicly deny the existence of any evidence of cooperation between his campaign and Russia. And more trouble today for Michael Flynn, Trump's former national security advisor, hit with 2 new subpoenas for business records in a Senate Russia probe.
We would like to hear from General Flynn. We'd like to see his documents. We'd like him to tell his story because he publicly said, I've got a story to tell.
Regardless of whether the accusations of collusion are true, Brennan says the fallout they've created in Washington is a welcome opportunity for Russia.
The Russians are watching very carefully what's going on in Washington right now, and they will try to exploit it for their own purposes.
Because Brennan stopped short of saying that those contacts amounted to collusion, the White House treated his testimony as vindication, seeming to ignore that Brennan also said the issue of collusion would be up to the criminal investigation to determine. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Washington.
Donald Trump's first budget was delivered to Congress today, a $4 trillion spending plan titled The New Foundation for American Greatness. Trump's budget calls for $469 billion in new military spending over the next decade and includes $2.6 billion for a border wall with Mexico, the one candidate Trump promised the U.S. would not pay for. But it also contains more than $3.5 trillion in cuts, including things like food stamps, Medicaid, and medical research, all in a bid to balance the books within a decade. That's based on sustained economic growth above 3%, more optimistic than the expectations of many economists. The corruption trial of South Korea's impeached ex-president began today. Park Geun-hye is accused of taking bribes from business leaders, including the head of Samsung, a charge that could see her sentenced to 10 years in prison. Park has pleaded not guilty. For the first time, the World Health Organization has an African leader. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus is the former health minister and foreign affairs minister of Ethiopia. He'll begin the new job July 1st. And northern and central India are suffering under a blistering heat wave. Temperatures almost reached 50 degrees today. One man described the heat as burning our skin. There's no official statistics on heat-related deaths. Straight ahead, an anti-immigrant protest causes tension at an Alberta high school.
It's not fashionable these days to spend too much time or enthusiasm arguing that there are differences between men and women. We've spent a lot of time denying that any differences exist. You can get into a lot of trouble claiming anything else. I'd like to suggest there's an immutable universal truth, an undeniable behavior pattern that separates the sexes. It involves yogurt containers. Women save them, men throw them out.
A lot of bands and parades like these represent police forces and cadet groups, things like that. This is the story of a different kind of band. Meet the Top Hat Marching Orchestra from Burlington, Ontario. In this parade, they're a little older, a little wiser, and a little lost. I've always been a little out of step with most of my colleagues who work in this racket called journalism. Most of my friends want to write for the front pages, want to chase the big stories. The stories I like best are the ones where there's no plot to begin with, no headlines, no news pegs. One thing you learn when you poke around off stage long enough is that people love to talk. Another thing you learn is that if you stick around long enough, and you listen hard enough, everyone has something worth saying. I owe you, Nick. Oh, okay. A Madagascar hissing cockroach. It looks like a beetle, or like a cigar, the end of a cigar. He's going to grow to be 6 inches, Peter, and you don't have to walk him.
6 inches, I know.
And all you have to do is name him and watch him grow.
Get in there, you little hissing cockroach. Stuart McLean.
Thank you very much.
In Moose Jaw.
You know, the great British statesman Winston Churchill once said that success is going from one failure to another without losing enthusiasm. But there's got to be a limit. I had a cow who couldn't learn her lines, a little girl who thought she was starring in a beauty pageant. The set wouldn't fit through the doors. Joseph was covered with scabs. And I was worried that I was coming down with the chicken pox.
So when I'm writing, I'm always trying to take people to the place of laughter, but also to the place where laughter meets tears.
A fight between two Alberta school kids in Red Deer escalated today into angry, dueling protests, pitting anti-immigrant factions with no connections to the school against students. As Terry Reith tells us, the hate spewed against the school was as disturbing as how the protesters wound up there in the first place.
A not-so-typical morning at Lindsay Thurber High. Police, media, protesters.
We shouldn't be accommodating people coming in our country. We need to be standing up for our values, who we are as a people, as a country, our heritage.
Stephen Garvey drove from Calgary to stand in front of the school and toss allegations that Muslim boys are violent, grope girls in the hallway, and threaten to cut people's heads off. It started last week with a schoolyard fight. Someone posted a video of it on an anti-immigration Facebook page. The caption, that the Muslim students were whipping other students, but escaped punishment because they were acting within their religious rights. All of that was completely untrue.
Well, the students were dealt with fairly, they were dealt with equally.
It was, according to the school and students, a schoolyard fight that stemmed from a misunderstanding.
It's kind of spiraled into a debate of race and religion when in reality what caused this had nothing to do with race or religion.
That they are in Canada now.
One student, a Muslim, even came out to plead for greater understanding.
Yeah, on all part.
It says not to assimilate in your book, in your Quran. It says not to assimilate.
Yeah.
Ursula Khan did not get a good reception. Then the principal and superintendent tried to answer the protesters' questions.
We will respect your questions. We also ask, though, that your questions be respectful of us.
The students have been getting death threats, threatening to cut their head off.
But the questions related to accusations the school officials say they've never heard before. And that was pretty much it. The officials walked away, the protest continued, no minds were changed. Terry Reith, CBC News, Edmonton. The Victoria Day paddling trip in Manitoba ended fatally for two dads and their young sons. All four are believed to have died after their canoe overturned. They were wearing life jackets. The accident occurred in the Burntwood River, northwest of Thompson. Local RCMP searched the water and recovered 4 bodies near a capsized boat. The victims were 6-year-old Liam and his dad Connor Sykes, and Shane Cripps and his 14-year-old son, Dylan. The UN has called solitary confinement of more than 15 days torture. Yet in Canada, the average stay in solitary for federal inmates last year was 26 days. Inquiries have long recommended changes to Canada's corrections system. The Liberals were elected on a promise to do so. But tonight, another Canadian family is dealing with the death of their relative who killed himself after months in segregation. Alison Crawford has the story.
Où sont-elles? Où sont-elles les personnes qui devaient le surveiller?
Natalie Langlois wants to know where the guards were when her brother hanged himself at Atlantic Institution in New Brunswick. He'd tried to kill himself before, and the day before his death, after 118 days of solitary confinement, he picked up the phone.
Bizarrement, il a appelé plusieurs personnes à leur dire qu'il les aimait, de jamais oublier qu'il les aimait.
38-year-old Guy Langlois had been serving time for killing a man in Montreal when he was 20. In his 18 years behind bars, he'd been beaten into a coma, medicated for mental health problems, and transferred 9 times. On the day of his death, the prison was planning to move him yet again.
Il voulait pas, il refusait le transfert en Colombie-Britannique, disant que ça va briser sa famille, que son couple, ça va mettre en péril son couple, son mariage.
The family learned of Langlois' death when the police showed up at 11 p.m. the next night. A few days after that, the phone rang.
On a eu un appel à 9 h le soir, moi et sa femme, nous disant que le corps était pogné à l'aéroport, qu'il fallait débourser $800 cash pour sortir le corps de l'aéroport. On s'entend-tu qu'il n'y a pas de frigidaire?
Situations like this were well documented in a report released last year by Canada's correctional investigator. Many other parts of this story are also all too familiar.
Here we have yet again a case of somebody who has long documented history of psychological distress and mental health issues, staying in segregation for almost 4 months. And hanging himself in segregation on the day that he was to be transferred across the country.
For its part, the Correctional Service of Canada told CBC it's limited in what it can say. We have convened an internal board of investigation into Mr. Langlois' death. Any significant findings from the BOI will be reviewed and shared, and we work with third-party organizations for the cremation or delivery of an inmate's remains.
Parce qu'on n'a pas encore les cendres de mon frère.
Those remains, though, still aren't in the hands of the Langlois family. His ashes won't be released until the family pays in full for the funeral. Alison Crawford, CBC News, Ottawa.
We'll be right back with more on our top story. The attack in Manchester is all too familiar, and it proves preemptive security can only do so much. What's the best way forward in this chilling new normal? Plus, the power of personal savings. Let's check today's business numbers. The TSX rose 18 points. The Canadian dollar was up 0.3 of a cent. In New York, the Dow rose 43 points. The price of oil was up 34 cents a barrel.
The National with Knowlton Nash.
Good evening and welcome to rainy Vancouver and Expo 86.
The province they call supernatural is ready. They've been drilling, painting, cleaning, and checking all week.
I think everyone's relatively calm.
There's everything here, from the world's biggest flagpole to the world's biggest hockey stick and the world's biggest hockey puck. You never know what you'll see next, and you never know who you're going to meet next. There's the mascot of the fair, Expo Ernie.
Well, bless my little robotic heart. Knowlton Nash and the crew from the National. How do you do? Glad to have you here.
Expo is a fair about transportation, so this state-of-the-art monorail was a natural. For the first 2 months, it kept breaking down, but now it's carrying capacity crowds. The sun shone for the first time in weeks in Vancouver today, and with the sun, Expo 86 came alive. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people got to see the fair for the first time. Being Saturday, it was a big day for the children. And for children, what counts at a fair is the fun. There was no shortage of that.
Just great. It's bringing the whole country together, too.
$5,000 is spent every night by Expo for a computerized laser and fireworks show. It's called International Nights of Fire.
We've never seen fireworks like that before.
Oh, that was awesome. At 86th Street, they party with the Powder Blues Band, and they obey the rules to eat, drink, and go crazy. When they first opened, these nightclubs had so many customers, things sometimes got out of hand. So extra doormen were hired. Proper dress is now required. The people who don't like dress codes still have a place to go, though. At the Irish pub, there doesn't seem to be any code at all.
Expo has done itself proud. That's great. They did well. I enjoyed myself like no other time.
It's the best thing that ever happened to British Columbia and to me.
I love it. I've had a great time here.
When we said in the House of Commons that was the most ridiculous policy ever, then if you will just wait, the truth will be given to you.
To unfurl a flag that is truly distinctive and truly national in character, as Canadian as the maple leaf on your badge.
When the cavalcade rolled up to a stage where Trudeau was to make remarks in support of the local candidates, he was confronted by sign-carrying hecklers again. This time protesting high unemployment. Trudeau's response, as it has been throughout this campaign, was to fight back.
Yeah, we saw you last night with your painted and hired signs and your hired friends. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of you holding signs like little boys. Come on, go and look for some jobs.
No, you're lost without your notes.
This lady just wouldn't give up and kept up a barrage of one-liners throughout the speech.
Are you running as a rhinoceros or as a liberal? Eh?
No rah-rah speeches! The truth!
Mulroney was frequently interrupted by a large and unusually provocative group of hecklers, most of them striking workers at the Gainers meatpacking plant in Edmonton. Mulroney appealed for calm, didn't get it, and didn't like it.
You can yell and you can scream all you want. I've fought bigger and better people than you, and I'll do it again.
As the Prime Minister continued toward his car, he came face to face with one of the demonstrators. Suddenly, Chrétien took the man by the back of the neck. His other hand was over the protester's mouth. He pushed him aside. Seconds later, another protester approached the Prime Minister. Chrétien knocked over the bullhorn that was in his hand.
But he was right in front of me, shouting and trying to block my way, so I took him out.
After last night's deadly bombing at a Manchester arena, you may be feeling a grim sense of déjà vu. Extremist attacks on soft targets are always shocking, but they no longer really surprise. So if this is the new normal, how should we cope? Glenn Carl specialized in terror threats during 23 years in the CIA. He joins us from Boston. And Stephanie Carvin is a terrorism expert at Carleton University. She's in Ottawa tonight. Well, Glenn, let me start with you, and let me back up just a sec, make sure we're all on the same page here. Are we in the new normal now with these attacks on soft targets?
Well, I would say that we are, and we have been for a good number of years, probably a decade or more, really. The CIA and other intelligence services globally have for a long time, although there's a heated debate in-house and in academia still, but nonetheless, for over a decade have assessed that the evolution of the terrorist threat will be to dispersed jihadists or terrorists, people who are not under the close command and control and acting as a member of Al-Qaeda, but as what we've started to call now inspired jihadists. These are individuals who, for a series of reasons, feel compelled to kill others in the name of Allah or some higher power. That's a harder problem to deal with than a coherent traditional hierarchical organization like Al-Qaeda.
So, Stephanie, do you agree we just have to accept that this is the world we live in now?
Well, it's not a happy message, but it certainly seems to be probably a realistic one. I would suggest that the bottom line with violent extremists is that they're opportunistic. And, as just discussed, the fact is that violent extremists will, whether hierarchical or networked, and increasingly it is networked, they will always try to go for targets. You can harden one, you can then, they'll go for a soft target. You can try and harden that target. They will go after another one. So it's a series of trying to balance exactly what the threat information you have is and trying to come up with reasonable responses while trying to preserve open access in a democracy.
Well, let's talk about what it's like then for citizens within that democracy, within society. How do we shift our thinking given this new normal? What would you say to that, Stephanie?
Well, I think, we have seen that to a certain extent, certainly in the UK, where there has been a stiff upper lip kind of mentality. I was in the UK in July 2005 when the attacks occurred there, and the resilience of the population is truly astounding. People got on with their lives. The next day they were going to work. And we've seen that here in Canada as well, following the attacks in October 2014. Canadians, by and large, got on with their lives. They weren't intimidated, and I think that's relatively encouraging. We can be shocked and we can mourn, but I think there's an understanding we do have to carry on with our lives.
Glenn?
I think that's exactly right. Ironically, I was also in London at the same time and have always been struck by the British response of stiff upper lip, and it's the proper way to respond. When the IRA blew up 10 Downing Street, the Prime Minister's office, during Margaret Thatcher's Prime Minister's tenure, after an hour or two after that, the Foreign Minister, Sir Geoffrey Howe, came out and was interviewed, and he was asked, well, what did you do? And his response was, well, we finished our meeting, of course. And that's really the way to do this. The problem, the challenge for media and for citizens is that we respond viscerally, emotionally to what we see and what is frightening. And of course one will be frightened by the horrors of Manchester or of Ottawa or the other places, and then emotionally attributes a greater level of threat than in fact is the case. The true threat from terrorism in Western societies is infinitesimally small. It's real. It calls for the likes of CIA officers or CSIS officers to pursue it, but it is not an existential challenge that is at the end of every country lane or city street.
Let me talk to you about how governments and police forces try to combat terrorism now. You know the old saying about the army generals tend to fight the last battle, not the one that's in front of them. Are anti-terrorism forces fighting the old battle against the kind of groups that they see now in the field, or have they adjusted? There is a sense that they're using the tactics, they use the tactics that the last terrorist attack showed, as opposed to thinking ahead? Stephanie?
Right. I think there's always going to be the risk of cognitive bias when you are engaged in any kind of countering activity. You're going to have in mind often what was just right in front of you. And I think that has, to a certain extent, been a problem. Terrorism today in 2017 is not what it was on September 12th, 2001. And we have had trouble sometimes recognizing when shifts take place. So, for example, when Al-Qaeda franchised, we had to respond to that in the mid-2000s. And around 2010, 2011, we had to understand kind of the mass movement nature of the Islamic State and adjust to that. But I think we are good at adjusting and eventually learning from our mistakes. We, in Western societies, in Australia, in Britain, in America, in Canada, we do tend to review what went wrong and to produce lessons learned reports. Unfortunately, in Canada, we have tended not to make those reports public, which I think is unfortunate. But other countries have, and they seem to be determined to learn, and I think that's encouraging.
Glenn, are other forces, whether it's in the States or the UK, are they learning? Have they changed in the way they're dealing with these threats?
Well, both the sensible, or actually the effective response and the less effective response have played out and been used simultaneously and continue to be. Unfortunately, or not surprisingly, it becomes a political issue. So there is a strong inclination to use paramilitary special forces, paramilitary officers from the intelligence services to go and get the bad guys. We've seen this quite a bit by American counterterrorism efforts for the past 15 years. There are people who need to be stopped, but that should not be, and I would say the intelligence services on the whole, globally and in America, recognize that should not be the central way forward. The way to deal with the problem long term is intelligence and police work. It's the local cop on the beat talking to the imam and the grocer who know the people in the neighborhood and see that Glenn has changed his behavior in the last several months. At the same time, you do intelligence work rather than kinetic, which sounds bloodless.
But haven't we been doing that? Haven't we been doing that for the last 10 or 15 years?
Oh, we have, and there have been. When you look at the numbers of terrorist attacks, despite the fear-mongering, frankly, of many politicians, there have been very few terrorist attacks. They are appalling. Not one is acceptable, and all need to be stopped. And we do not succeed in stopping all of them. But on the whole, there have been few, and the intelligence services in the West are quite adept on and take generally the correct approach, which is try to identify people and know when they will act. Now, on this Manchester attack, once again, the British services knew about this individual. The challenge for all services, and we don't have a good answer to this problem, is when to know, to identify that an individual of concern will become operational. That's the critical question, which we sometimes tragically get wrong.
Stephanie, Glenn makes a good point about, when you look at the number of attacks, as awful as they are, they're not a lot of attacks when you start to add them all up, as opposed to parts in the world where terror attacks are almost daily, certainly weekly, with awful results. And we in the international media tend to kind of gloss over it or sometimes not even mention them. Are there things to learn from watching what we've seen, whether it's in Iraq or Pakistan or elsewhere, where we have seen daily occurrences of large-scale terror attacks?
I think the context in the Middle East is radically different from what's happening in Canada. And in fact, I actually would say the context of what's happening in London and Manchester is also different from what's happening in Canada. The European context, the threat environment is different. So there's always lessons we can learn. And certainly, there's good exchange of threat information from allies and as well as best practices. The Five Eyes countries get together and they talk about policies with regards to counterterrorism, not just from an intelligence sharing side, but actually from a policy side. So what can we actually learn together? I would say that there isn't that much we can necessarily learn from the Middle East, if only because, Canada's a democracy. It has relatively low levels, as has been previously mentioned. And, actually, if anything, I think we as Canadians have a lot to offer countries in the Middle East with regards to supporting counterterrorism initiatives. And we've seen that as a part of the Government of Canada's strategy, as a part of its global campaign to fight ISIS.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there for tonight, but I thank you both, Glenn in Boston, Stephanie in Ottawa. Thank you. Well, now, stay tuned for our Viewpoint segment. We have advice that could take the edge off your financial life.
One of the highlights of the sports year throughout Western Europe, the International Auto Exhibit. By and large, the designers and manufacturers have worked toward the goal of producing a car that will carry the most people the farthest at the lowest cost. But comfort remains a factor. And as far as gadgetry is concerned, the European car makers are in a neck-and-neck race with their American counterparts.
Transporting cargo is no problem for the XP883.
The automobile may be a form of transportation, a way of getting from here to there, but it's also much more. It has served Americans as a status symbol, a love object, and an instrument of adolescent machismo. Suddenly we become aware that families that would never dream of purchasing a $100 painting are eager to spend $7,000 for a gleaming, striped and chromed hunk of metal. In their eyes, this suggests beauty.
This particular car is all electric, yes, and you remember we came in the front door here. It's very simple. There's a brake and an accelerator and one position for forward and one position for reverse, and that's all there is to it.
You just seal this up by pulling this down.
Right, let's try it.
Oh,
There.
how about that? You suppose we'll ever get out again?
I don't know, I feel like preserved here like some peaches.
Now, we realize the emphasis is on wheels, but we never expected to find this. It's called the Panther 6 because it has 6 wheels, 2 on the back, 4 on the front. The Panther is now handmade just outside Vancouver and uses a huge Cadillac turbo engine.
How fast?
200 miles an hour.
How much?
$200,000.
Wow.
So what will you be driving in 25 years? This prototype was designed to travel at 240 kilometers per hour. TV cameras mounted inside the back of the car feed the driver pictures of what's happening behind.
And what you do is you program in where you want to go and where you are, and on this screen you'll get a digitized map that shows you the best alternative route to take.
This car just might take the place of some airplane flights.
My name is Rabina Ahmed Haq. I'm a personal finance journalist. I want to talk about our current attitudes towards saving and spending and why they are foolish and dangerous. In the 1980s, for every dollar Canadians earned, they would sock away 20 cents. Granted, at the time, interest rates were at historic highs, encouraging people to save. But mortgage rates were sky high as well. At that time, Canadians had to save up a large down payment before even considering home ownership. Nobody could buy a house with only 5% down. That wasn't even allowed. Fast forward to today, and Canadians have abandoned the idea of saving up and avoiding a mountain of debt. The savings rate has dropped to less than 5%, and Canadians are willing to sign up for colossal high-ratio mortgages because they can. Add to that escalating levels of consumer debt held on credit cards and lines of credit, and the financial future of many Canadians has become precarious. Already, a recent report found that close to 50% of Canadians would be unable to afford their life if their bills went up only $200 a month. Think about what that means, $200. What if you became unemployed for a few months or needed an emergency home repair? Things that could happen at any moment. Some of this has to do with low interest rates that provide no real incentive to save. But in other ways, it's also our attitude about saving that has shifted. That in some ways, saving is old-fashioned, quaint, something your parents did. This change in attitude is putting Canadians at risk of financial ruin. So, who's to blame for this shift in thinking? For one, it's the banks and their tendency to offer bigger and bigger loans. In this low interest rate environment, banks have amped up their predatory behavior. They can qualify mortgage seekers for hundreds of thousands more than they ask for. Call homeowners late at night with offers of pre-approved loans. They can come up with new schemes to encourage refinancing, and doing this without any real risk to themselves, because the highest risk loans are backstopped by the taxpayer dollar. But some of the blame is on us. Canadians need to get more financially literate and do better when it comes to budgeting and saving, and give up the notion that it's an antiquated concept. Whether you rent or own, are a student or a full-time employee, making $30,000 or $3 million a year, the basics remain the same. Save money and pay your bills before spending on anything else. Don't worry, doing so doesn't make you cheap. It actually makes you financially savvy and confident. Let's bring the concept of saving back into fashion. For The National, I'm Rubina Ahmed-Haq.
I'm Anna Maria Tremonti. Tomorrow on The Current, science journalist Richard Harris documents sloppy biomedical research that produces worthless cures for an unsuspecting public. The author of Rigor Mortis on The Current, weekdays at 8:30 on CBC Radio 1.
Each working day of the year throughout Canada, the post office handles about 10 million pieces of mail. The men who face the gigantic task of sorting this mass of mail must know the names of 13,000 cities, towns, and villages in Canada.
In the last decade, its reputation for quick, dependable service has been smashed by literally hundreds of labor disturbances. Its deficit has risen to an astonishing $600 million a year, and its automation program is so far behind schedule, no one can estimate when it'll be finished.
Canadians are losing patience. They're increasingly fed up, and so am I. The post office will become a crown corporation.
In rural communities across Canada, the post office is more than a place to buy stamps and pick up your mail, and this one is no exception.
It's really the center of the village.
But Canada Post says it loses money. These new super boxes will replace Verna Dunlop.
There's no contact with an aluminum box and a key.
We want to have a community life.
About 30 groups of angry residents from across Canada kicked off a national campaign today to get rid of super mailboxes.
Ann Derrett lives in Markham, just north of Toronto. She doesn't get home mail delivery. Every weekday, either she or her husband trudges about 100 meters to the neighborhood mailbox. Derrett hates that trek so much, she helped found RAM, Residents Against Mailboxes.
RAM Mulrooney mailboxes.
Well, the post office delivered something today it hasn't been able to for 30 years, a profit. Canada Post says it made almost $100 million in the past year, and it expects even bigger profits in the future.
Canadians are making fewer trips to the mailbox. This is the main culprit, email, now as mainstream as a Hollywood blockbuster movie. convincing the millions of Canadians who use it to come back to so-called snail mail won't be easy.
Why would I want to mail a letter and post it, then go to the mailbox? Why?
Big change for many Canadians. The end of home mail delivery in urban centres.
On doorsteps across the country today, there came plenty of reaction to the big changes at Canada Post.
I like to have things delivered, and everyone cuts back, and it's so silly.
Like the milkman a generation or more ago, the days of daily visits from your friendly letter carrier will soon seem like a quaint notion from another era.
The National. The National.
Tonight,
When Calls the Heart, new season this summer on CBC.
There we were, all of us eager young pioneers, just turned professional, performing on all media in both languages, and then off to Toronto, and then New York, London, and tomorrow's the world.
But James, I need you.
So does England.
as James Bond, Roger Moore didn't take himself too seriously. He brought charm, comedy, and candor to the role he played 7 times. Those who knew the British actor say he embodied those qualities off-screen too. Roger Moore died from cancer today at the age of 89. Eli Glasner looks back on a career that spanned more than 7 decades.
Oh, by the way, we haven't been properly introduced, Melina. My name is Bond. James Bond.
There have been many Bonds, but no one played a secret agent quite like Roger Moore. His 007 was suave, stylish, and always willing to do his part for Queen and Country.
Well, that was lesson number 2, togetherness.
It's the time before we leave for lesson number 3.
Absolutely.
Audiences first discovered Moore on the small screen in TV shows such as Ivanhoe and Maverick.
You're not just teasing me, are you? You really are James Bond.
But it was his performance as the charming thief Simon Templar in The Saint. It also caught the eyes of producers looking to replace Sean Connery. At 46 years old, Moore was the oldest actor to become Bond, beginning with Live and Let Die. And with a well-timed quip, or his secret weapon, the arched eyebrow, Moore would let us know he wasn't taking things too seriously.
He would sometimes look directly at the camera and break that fourth wall. He sort of got the joke. He said also, I didn't really think of Bond as a serious spy because everyone knew his name and knew his drink. You can't be an effective spy that way.
This is impossible.
Moore's run was the longest in the franchise. After 7 films, it was time to stop.
Sadly, I had to retire from Bond because the girls were all getting too young. Or I was getting too old, I can't remember which.
While Moore didn't think much of his own talents, his fellow Bond, Pierce Brosnan, described him as magnificent and said the world will miss his unique sense of humor. When his acting career slowed down, Moore began focusing on charity work. Beginning in 1991, he became a Goodwill ambassador for UNICEF, traveling the world advocating on behalf of children.
You know, the more you see, the more you're determined to go on and try and improve things.
Today, UNICEF paid tribute, saying, the world has lost one of its great champions for children. For many, Moore will always be the dashing 007. For Moore, the secret agent gave him a license to give back, shining a light on those less fortunate. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.
For decades, it lit up a busy street corner in Toronto. Today, the iconic Honest Ed sign was dismantled and taken down. Crowds watched as crews removed the huge marquee from the now closed retailer. The sign is 9 meters tall, 18 meters wide, and covered with thousands of light bulbs. There's a plan to give it a new home above a theater named after the store's founder, Ed Mirvish. Before we go tonight, we want to clarify details from a weekend story. It was about the Royal Canadian Mint's 20 for 20 face value program. The report showed a coin commemorating the wedding of Will and Kate. It wasn't part of the Mint's program. It actually retails for about $105, not $20. And the Mint's annual report was handed in on time and not delayed. That's The National this Tuesday night. For news at any hour, you can always go to our website, cbcnews.ca. I'm Peter Mansbridge. Thanks for watching.